And hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Pumpkin Copter Cast, the only video game show. And today I am joined by Piotr, and we're going to be talking about his recently released game, One Rotten Oath. Hello, Piotr.
Hey, hello there. So yeah, that's me. I'm the main developer of One Rotten Oath. And yeah, I am a developer from Poland, from such a small town like Tczew. And yeah, we're gonna talk about One Rotten Oath and its development, I presume.
Yeah.
So yeah, hit me with the questions. What do you got for me?
Okay. Let's see. Well, before we do, we're gonna play just a quick game that I play at the beginning of every episode. We are going to be playing a game of Yu Gi Oh! Or Dark Souls. And how this works is I will name three characters, and you have to guess, Piotr, if it's either from the card game slash anime Yu Gi Oh! Or from the From Software franchise Dark Souls.
Oh God, you got me here good because first and foremost, in Poland we've got like yeah we had UGO in our like TV stations, but we're mostly known for watching like Naruto and other like Dragon Ball anime like that. But in terms of Dark Souls, I've never beaten it. I just got my ass so kicked there that I just can't finish the game at all, so I'm gonna be terrible at this. But
Okay,
yeah, hit me. Let's get it over with.
so we'll start with the first one. The Tricky Yu Gi Oh! Or Dark Souls.
Sounds like something or someone from Dark Souls.
Incorrect. It is a
God
monster
damn it.
from Yu Gi Oh!
All right, next.
Alright, let's see. What's the next one? Oh, I forgot the one I was going to use. Father Gascoigne. Yu Gi Oh! Or Dark Souls?
Come on, that's gotta be Dark Souls.
Yeah, as one of the first of the mandatory bosses in Bloodborne, which is basically Dark Souls, but
Yes,
British
at
and
least
gorier.
one honor point.
Yeah, and let's see.
Say that again, please. Something cut you off.
Oh, nothing. Um, let's see. And the last one, Blackluster Soldier, Yu-Gi-Oh or Dark Souls.
All right, I'm gonna go on a limb and say Yu-Gi-Oh.
That is true. Is from
Phew.
Blackluster Soldier is from Yu-Gi-Oh.
I'm so strict because of that little game. Like, damn, dude. That's not what I was expecting at all.
uh, so anyway, with that we can move on to the interview proper. So Piotr, how about we start with just an introduction of you to anyone who's actually watching this?
Well, that's a tough one actually because I specialize in FMV games, full motion video titles in
Mm-hmm.
my spare time, but on a daily basis, I work at Forever Entertainment in Poland, the guys who actually worked on remakes of the titles such as The House of the Dead or the Front Mission series. But I'm working in the indie games department, so I'm basically like, playing a lot of different indie games that come up to me and just, send them further up to their higher ups or just, talk how they can improve the game. So that's what I'm doing on a daily basis. But in terms of game dev, I'm actually doing this from 2016. I actually started making games back when I was in high school. And why full motion videos? because back then, and actually right up to this point, it's kind of easy to make them because you have to like work with real life actors or friends or whoever you have at your disposal and just try to make something cool. And I remember that back in 2016, I actually started with the old Nikon Coolpix L110, and I actually used the old laptop that my sister used that had like this Intel Core 2 Duo and was barely able to run like Sony Vegas Pro 9, I think it was. But I started from that, and after a while, I actually had a 5 year hiatus, so I didn't do like anything game dev related, but I guess we'll get into that as well. And I just came back after that 5 year hiatus and released One Rotten Oath, which is also a full motion video game, but with first person shooter elements. So basically, you have this like how can I talk about One Rotten Oath without spoiling it? That's the hard part because in One Rotten Oath you play as a survivor in the post-apocalyptic world,
Mm-hmm.
and you live in this like one of the last bunkers where people are still living at the edge of the town in the deep forests. But the catch is that the electricity in the bunker goes off like frequently. So the survivor has to come up and fight with the mutants while the generators are restarting. But the catch is there is something different there as well that also impacts the survivor in game, and that's the developer himself intervene in this world. So you
Huh.
have this dual narration kind of thing where you are playing as the survivor fighting for the survival because for what else, trying to keep all those people safe. But on the other hand, you have this fourth wall breaking sequences where you can see how the game was actually developed and how whatever happens in the developer's life actually impacts the survivor in game. And this is like this is the place where I just put this, dot here and won't say anymore about the plot because you kind of have to experience this yourself. I don't want to spoil anything more for people because yeah, that's a weird experience.
Mm-hmm. And when was the first time you said that? When was the first time in your life that you remember that you were introduced to like video games? It's just like a mode of entertainment. Would you say?
Oh god, that was a long time ago. I think when I was 5, if I remember correctly, my father bought me this, NES clone. In Poland, we had this marketplaces where, people were actually selling socks, like other types of clothes, and you would have to come up to the special like stalls where there were CDs, weird consoles, sometimes not 100% legit. And my father actually bought me this like NES cheap clone, and it was absolutely terrible. It was like this weird keyboard kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I had one of those cartridges, like 99 games in one, which were like 5 games or 10 were actually like the original titles, and the other ones were clones or weird mods or other things like that. And I remember I started from that. I have this like vivid memory when I play like this Super Mario Bros. Clone while eating like this cheap candlesticks and playing that sort of games. But I remember that my true love for the uh, games actually came up when I got a Windows 98 from my uncle. But another catch was that my uncle actually was, well, He got this PC for real cheap and he didn't check everything in it before he gave it to me.
Oh
So
dear.
I've got, yeah, I got the Windows 98 without the sound card, but I've had speakers. I just didn't have any sound card at all. And I remember that I didn't have like any graphic card, I think at least, because whatever I had there, it never actually worked. I remember that my friends played like Need for Speed Most Wanted or just, Underground 2, GTA 3, and stuff like that. And I was stuck playing like Porsche Unleashed or GTA 2 because I just barely could run anything on that PC. But I remember that back then I bought a lot of like this, cheap magazines with shareware games or one full version and 30 demos or stuff like that. And that exposed me to a lot of different titles that I wouldn't even touch on back then. There was really a lot, like the first digital version of Catan board game. There was also Earth 2150 The Moon Project, I think that how it was named. Tempest 2000, Lamatron. There were even like weird games like Duck Doom Deluxe, which was basically Duck Hunt, but with like Doom skins, and this was on the official like CD, and I have this vivid memory of playing this, weird indie game slash modification kind of thing. Well, by today's point, I don't even know what that was exactly, but I played it, and the further I got in my life, when I actually got the Windows XP and played Kao the Kangaroo Round 2, and actually played a lot of demos back then as well, because it was actually tough in Poland to buy a fully legit game back before we actually like got into the European Union and stuff like that. So we either had really poor quality Polish games, or we had this weird shareware type of thing, or demos, or just weird cheap clones. It was a wild west back then. So, but I'm glad for that, that I got to experience this, because I just got to experience a lot of weird games that eventually put me on the path of trying to figure something out on my own. And I guess that's where FMV love kind of comes from, because back then we couldn't really afford like Sega CD. It was like this weird rare console that would never actually got into your hands in Poland. Like a select few really had that console, at least here in the place where I live. And I remember when I actually got like MacDoc McCree from my father, and it was this weird FMV rail shooter that we all just remember fondly today. But back then, it was like eye-opening for me, because yeah, I can like aim at the real like Wild West people and stuff like that, just take part in those duels. And back then I thought that the graphics won't really get better from that point onward, but yeah, I was mistaken. And if you're asking about those other weird experiences in my life, I also remember the first game that I ever cracked. But I don't know if you want to talk about this.
By all means, if you want to, go ahead.
Yeah, so the first game I actually cracked in my life was Medal of Honor Allied Assault. I remember that my father brought this game to me, and it was, this cheap, like, CDR, CD, and it had this, like, marker on it, Medal of Honor Allied Assault. And I remember that I installed it. I knew how to install the game back to that point and input that weird CD key that I got on the note from my father, but I didn't know how to copy and paste like the executable file. And I remember that my father called his colleague from work, and that colleague actually like went with me step by step. How should I crack that game? And I did this when I had like, I don't know, 9 or 10 years. Especially like I shouldn't be playing that game at all, but I'm glad that I did either way. And it was like such a weird experience in my life. So yeah, I remember that fondly. Actually, Allied Assault games holding up pretty well by this point, especially even the multiplayer that's still active. And yeah, that was especially weird when I found out it's still active. So yeah, but that's a little something from my life.
Okay. And what would you say is your favorite game and or games growing up?
Oh god, there were a lot of them. Like it's it's hard for me actually to give like this one definitive answer because I've played a lot of games back then and I play a lot of games today because like I said at the beginning I work at this indie games department, so I'm basically playing like 3 or 4 demos daily, so there's a lot of games like going through me. And well, it's hard to pinpoint. Maybe I don't know. Maybe you can like say in which genre. Maybe this will make things easier for me.
Okay, so I don't know. What would you say is your favorite first person shooter from back in the day?
I would say Brothers in Arms, especially Road to Hill 30 and Earned in Blood. I was absolutely blown away by all the like tactical abilities, the story of Matt Baker and the entire like division. It was super defining for me, and it still holds up today. It's one of my favorite shooters in terms of those tactical ones. I know that a lot of people actually pinpoint like a Rainbow Six series in terms of anything that Ubisoft released, but at that point Gearbox Software was really up to its game, and I still play this up to this point. So it's one of my favorite first person shooters, and especially since it had one of the best Polish versions out there, like the voiceovers there and the dialogues like translated from English to Polish were especially peak in terms of the overall message. So, and I guess that's what got me actually interested a bit in those World War II weaponry and stuff like that. So I'm especially glad for this experience.
Okay. And what would you say are some of your favorite game and or games nowadays?
Nowadays, I catch myself playing The Long Dark, for example, like the game where you have this like weird winter storm that actually took down everything, and you have to survive in this cold winter by collecting all of the like cans and making fires and just going from point A to B, just trying to survive at and just fend off all the wolves. There is something I love about this game, that solitude, I guess. You have this quiet, basically like dead but pretty landscape full of like snow, and you're just trying to survive there. it it's something like, there's something calming about it, like something super calm and solitary, like I said. And when I have this like too much stuff on my head, or a lot of things is going on in my life, I love to just sit at my PC and play the Long Dark, because there's something special in that little game. Actually, it's no more little. It's actually a big title by today's standards, but I actually bought the game when it was still in early access phase, so I saw its development for like 10 years, I think, and it's awesome. It's still the game that I come back to like the most. So yeah, especially that's the title, I would say.
Okay. And yes, you mentioned at the beginning of what what One Rotten Oath is, but and you mentioned it's a FMV game. Are there any FMV games that you like helped give you inspiration to make this, or did you just like emulate the style, or did you just like make an FMV game without really just like taking inspiration from any one source?
You know, I actually went and thought to myself that I have something I want to say
Mm-hmm.
in a certain like way, but I didn't know how to pull it off. In terms of inspiration, it's not like a pinpoint one title I would say out loud because I think what inspired me the most to actually try doing this again were the Wales Interactive Studio titles. They showed me that FMV is still something that people would gladly play and give a chance, even though it's like a niche kind of genre. And especially the Last Stand Flash game series, where you are like behind the barricades, fending off various mutants like away from your barricade. That's something that's also was an inspiration in terms of like gameplay side of things. But there is a lot of like varied things that happened in my life that actually led to those kind of inspirations because well, first and foremost, I started from the FMVs. That's how my journey began
Mm-hmm.
in like game dev standards. And then I knew that I had this after 5 year break. I had something to say. How how it all went, how I had to like just push it out of me because I guess to really understand One Rotten Oath and what it's all about, you have to like get back to this 2016 where I released my first game because I released my first title back when I was in high school. It was called A Trip to Yugoslavia. And it was this, simple FMV game where you had to choose either left or right option, and something would happen, and you'd had to like press the correct arrows to survive certain ordeals, and you would get like 1 out of 10 endings. So we've recorded that game in the old military terrains in my hometown, and when we did, we actually thought that nobody would play this at all. But then, like, Markiplier played it, and all of the local medias were talking about us. Like, a few guys from the small town in Poland that made a weird game that's actually, that it's known because of the Markiplier. And from that point onward, we were basically on fire. I remember when my friends were actually like preparing themselves to write that final tests in high school. I was actually traveling through the entire Poland, like promoting the game that we
Mm-hmm.
did. And after that success, we actually like received the publishing deal. So we actually got a chance to be on Steam through the Steam Greenlight, which was again like super lucky back then. Mm, and then I remember also that we met a lot of like great people. For example, I remember that I bumped into the guy who created Super Hot, and he was like, "Hey, I'm Piotr," and I'm like, "I'm Piotr as well, but dude, you're earning like thousands of Polish zlotych today. I shouldn't even be here." And he just grabbed my hand and said, "Dude, that's the best shit I played here," and just went away. And this was this first big interaction that I had with that kind of person, like someone from the industry. And it was something that stood out like with me from all the time. And then when we actually got the like funding and stuff like that, we went on to create the second project, which was called Purgatorium: A Family Torn Apart. But as the name suggests as well, the project actually fall apart because we all had our creative differences. So, I had like different ideas for the game, and the guys that I worked with from the other studio in Croatia actually had different ideas as well. And eventually, the pressure was so big that we had to make something great and stuff like that that I couldn't really do it. I just gave up. I felt pressure like so big that I just couldn't face it. Like we've put basically all the funds that we had from the first game into that second project, and yeah, if it ever came out, it would be super ambitious for like three guys that were making it, but I just I wasn't able to do so, like to cooperate even further on that project, and that actually left me really depressed back then, and it was tough. It was super tough because I gave everything up. Like I stepped down from game development. It felt like falling from the high horse, like totally on its head, because you're getting this chance back in the high school, like the entire world is completely open for whatever you do, and then you're making this second project even better, bigger, like you are actually investing something into the project just to watch it fall apart, and it really left a mark on me. So I remember that I gave everything up for like 5 years, and when I started working for Forever Entertainment, I actually had a lot of different jobs as well in that time, because I worked at the reception desk at the hotel. I actually worked as a radio host in the local radio station. I was also like preparing various like news for the local TV. I actually went a bit more into media side of things, but then I got a chance to work at Forever Entertainment, and when I saw what kind of games people were sending us, even like the not really up to par things, but still they were believing in themselves. And I saw all these great games made by one, two, three guys, whatever. And one day on my way home, I, stood at the lights and thought to myself, if not now, then when? And I just went back home and started, tinkering. And back then I worked at on Unity engine actually. In C sharp, I was coding like everything back then.
Mm-hmm.
But when I sit to it at like 5 years later, I couldn't remember a thing. Like a lot of things changed in the Unity throughout the 5 years that I couldn't really like figure it out, which at first completely stunned me. I thought that, well, you've had great intentions, now what? But then I took a look around and I found GDevelop engine, which was mainly for 2D and mostly made in like JavaScript and this visual coding, I think. And it kind of worked like Construct 3, those types of engines. And I thought to myself, all right, I'm gonna try to do at least a simple prototype. So that little prototype took like 3 months, and I thought to myself, I might have something interesting here. So I didn't want to like transfer it to other engines like Unity or Unreal or whatever. I thought to myself, I'm gonna push that engine that I'm currently working on and see where I can get. And actually there was a lot of things that didn't work on GDevelop. It's a great engine, but back then they didn't really have those options that I needed. So development was sometimes hard. For example, One Rotten Oath uses like real life actors. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if we can name actors like the entire family. Basically, my brother and myself were playing mutants that we are actually shooting in the game. And my fiance actually made a few graphics for like HUD and stuff like that. And she actually composed the entire soundtrack in one go, so that's kind of like a family affair, even though they don't really like being in the spotlight, so I'm talking all the way about this by myself. But we actually did this in like three people. And one thing that GDevelop doesn't support are the multiple video clips on one level. But I actually discovered this when I had everything ready, when the mutants were recorded, when we had all the scenes, and I sit there and was like, what now? How can I just, get through that problem? And eventually, even though it took a lot of time, it took like, I guess, half of the development, to be quite honest with you. I had to cut everything, each frame. I had to cut it all frame by frame, all the animations, like all the clips that we've recorded. So the entire game has like 3,000 still frames, like cut out frame by frame by me in my spare time.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this, weird routine at the morning when I was waking up to work and while eating breakfast, I was cutting out like 10 or 15 frames before I went into the morning commute. So the progress was absolutely slow and daunting as hell. But when everything was said and done and I actually implemented all of those sprites, it was a great feeling to see all of those things working and just, done for the other way around, just going around that engine limitations. And aside from the survivor in game, it was actually something that I had to say out loud as well. Just get this out in this game and trap this in those like a couple of megabytes and try to move on, because the Purgatorium project was something hard for me to, you know, to face, because I thought that I can't make a proper game again. That whatever I'll do, I won't be able to release it. And, actually completing the game and releasing it actually took a lot of my shoulders. Like, put me again into the game and to the development in my spare time, and I showed myself that I can still do it, that I can still create, that I still have something to say. And it was about believing in myself mostly, so it had to be said and done. And of course, One Rotten Oath actually has a few fictional elements to it, but the scenes that you see mostly during the full motion video sequences were things and events that actually happened in my life throughout those, 5 years of nothing. And it was really like relieving to actually put this in the game, to do it like that, because like someone in the one review wrote on Steam page, which actually took me by surprise. One Rotten Oath is about surviving in the multiple of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true, because you have to survive those like monsters and survive within your expectations and whatever the people think about you and whatever like the problems you will face. But it's not always a pretty story, and I wanted it to resonate. Although there is hope there at some point, it's really one of those, stories that are actually not as uplifting, but it was something that I had to say, that I had to throw out there. And it wasn't about the sales at all, but it was about, proving to myself that I can still do this, and that there is still someone that will play something like that. A game in a kind of an art form, if you can say it like that. It's really weird, but I'm glad. I'm glad that I managed to release the project, and I'm glad I managed to build, you know, even that small community, but it's still a community that reacts to the posts and invites me to the various talks and podcasts like you are, for example. And it's great. It's great to be in the thick of it again because I feel like I feel like being 18 again when I was discovering all that things and just riding throughout the entire country. And I thought that will never happen again, that I will never experience the thrill of, completing something that I have to have this big team to release a thing. And it was tough to actually do this, but I'm glad I did. So yeah, I'm talking all the time here, but you might have some other questions on your board as well. So feel free to just step in into whatever I'm saying because I'm quite a chatterbox. So you basically just opened it. So
Okay. And Piotr, what would you say like the indie game scene is like in Poland, like in comparison to somewhere like America? Because like I've noticed going to conventions at PAX that getting indie devs from other countries is kind of like exploded. Like there's all manner of like non-profit groups like Latinx in
yeah,
video games to like give people not just from where I am like a chance to make their stuff.
It's quite interesting because in Poland mostly you see various game jams. Aside from like releasing a proper indie game, there's a lot of experimentation in Poland. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
there are like a few smaller studios that are creating something, but by this point, Poland is actually more known from the like big studios. Of course, we won't have to like introduce CD Projekt Red to anyone, but in terms of indie scene, it's actually great when you get to the events like PGA, Poznań Game Arena. I actually managed to have my stall there last year because I actually thought I won't be able to get there because I actually sent the application to the Indie Game Poland Foundation. They are like collecting all of those indie studios or like duos, trios, and stuff like that, and are offering them a chance to showcase their games at bigger events in Poland, like that PGA, for example. And when I sent that application, I thought that I won't be able to get in there because even if something is indie in Poland, it's actually a higher budget production nonetheless. Maybe not as big as Witcher, for example, but still quite big, like Chernobylite, I think. But yeah, when I sent that application, I actually, got accepted, and we went to Poznań, and we've had this 4 rows of indie games, like proper indie games, where they were developed at like 2 or 3 people, and it was awesome to see what kind of other titles were in the game. We saw like racing games, of course, roguelites and roguelikes alike, a lot of simulation games. It's fun because it's these are the games that won't like go into the mainstream at least now, but they have the pretty great potential to do so. And it's awesome to see that because it's basically that way, like game jams, bigger events, but through the foundations, and then you can actually go to the showcase yourself while get in the stall and stuff like that. So I'm actually starting from zero, just like those other guys. So yeah, the indie scene is still varied here. You can like find a lot of great games. So yeah, I'm actually pretty excited to see where the indie scene would go as well. Because whenever you meet someone from the Polish indie scene, you actually want to keep that contact.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I have like this great contact with Maciek that is actively developing a Future Darko Racer, which is a racing game based on the comics. And we have this, this weird symbiosis that whenever he sees something interesting, like an event or a YouTube channel that covers indie games, he sent this, like those links my way. And I'm like, thanks, dude, I'm gonna send my game there as well. But whenever I see something like, hey, this event looks cool, do you want to go there as well? And I'm sending this link to him. And actually, the indie scene in Poland works that way. You have to kind of be in that symbiosis if you don't want to miss out on something. So, and yeah, basically, meeting all the devs is also awesome because you can trade those experiences and even do some cool things like cross promotion or stuff like that. So whenever you help the Polish indie developer, he will most certainly help you. So it's super great.
Okay. And let's say, like with One Rotten Oath out there and available, do you intend to stick with like FMV games for the foreseeable future, or is there like another game type that you're looking forward to tackling sometime soon?
I'm gonna stick to it. I'm gonna stick to making full motion videos because I feel like this is part of my identity, that was something that got me into the game development, but it's something that I can improve on with the, knowledge that I have now. And I'm already working on a second project in terms of an FMV game that's also gonna be using the same kind of tricks in terms of like video files and stuff like that, but I'm gonna switch genres. So I'm gonna check how that goes. I hope it goes well because I think that's something I wanna do. It's quite early to say for sure what's gonna happen. I hope that's gonna happen because well, I released the game like 3 months ago, so everything is still moving. I'm still checking how it's going and how people are gonna react to it. But it's a niche that I actually love, so I hope I'll get to do more of this. And yeah, that's the plan. Of course, I'm not gonna do super like big games. I think that in this point of my life, I can't really afford putting too much time after my work into other projects. So these will definitely be a smaller scale experiences and probably also quite cheap because that's how it goes. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna push out that kind of projects. I think that's my way of going further, but we'll see what the time will bring.
Okay. And yeah, I think with that we can bring this particular episode of the Pumpkin Copter Cast to a close. I would like to thank Piotr for joining me and talking about his game One Rotten Oath, which you can play the demo and also buy it on Steam. And Piotr, is there anywhere else people can like follow you for any like anything you're working on?
Well, you can of course follow me on my YouTube channel, you can follow me on Blue Sky account, you can follow me on X as well, and even Facebook, because yeah, I'm still like trying to push it out. But yeah, feel free to check out my social media and yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and if any of you liked like these ramblings from me, you can subscribe to youtube.com/the pumpkin copter cast If any of you have any spare money you want to throw my way, you can go to patreon.com/thepumpkincoptercast, where for as little as $1 a month, you could submit questions for me to use in future interviews when I remember to do that. And yeah, you can also follow me on Blue Sky at Big Debbie. And yes, this has been the Pumpkin Copter Cast, and have a gourd day, everyone.